Today I'll be breaking down the second half of Palantir's Double Click presentation from just a couple days ago. In this video I'll be supplementing my dialogue with clips from the official Double Click event. So let's get right into it. Industrials are one of Palantir's 40 industries that they serve with Palantir Foundry. Let's hear the introduction.
I'm Sam Woodward. I'm a computer scientist and I work on IoT at Palantir. I've spent the last few years working across dozens of our industrials customers and believe that our platform is capable of handling data in a way that no other platform can. We've worked alongside our customers to understand the analytical computations they need so that we can build them directly into our world-class time series infrastructure. We've worked on the features that allow them to build and run models across the full history of their sensor data without sacrificing performance. And we've built the tools to combine that sensor data with other data in the platform to fully contextualize their operations and scale models across the fleet.
We've spent years working on these problems. We've actually been able to bake these hard-earned learnings back into the platform, so now you can apply these to a specific customer's context in a matter of weeks. So part of this is what we call software-defined data integrations, basically taking what used to take months or even years of painful manual work, and you need specialist knowledge of the underlying data sources, and actually just replacing that with a few clicks. So basically it takes care of all of the really hard parts, like how to understand thousands of tables with non-intuitive column names and mappings in systems like ERPs or CRMs. So it's actually because we've built that technical foundation that we can now apply that to business operations in weeks. So for example, manufacturers can trace quality issues or better manage complex product portfolios, or it means that global logistics networks can optimize responses to things like trade regionalization, or energy companies can optimize production using massive scale sensor data from hundreds of assets across the globe.
Atop this technical foundation, we're excited to bring you our industrials archetypes. Our catalog of archetypes spans functions ranging from production optimization to back office. Our customers can use these archetypes to impact decisions across the business quickly without rebuilding a solution from scratch for each emerging need.
In this video, we'll be diving into the archetypes that are specifically important for any organization using Palantir Foundry for industrials. The first of which is the quality archetype. I'll cut together a few clips of explanation and demonstration.
Today, we're going to show you two Foundry archetypes that can help transform operations, starting with the quality archetype.
Take battery manufacturing. Usage of lithium-ion batteries is expected to rise, and manufacturers face really hard challenges of increasing quality, but also continuing to reduce costs. Battery manufacturing is an extremely precise, multi-step process, and actually deviations can be introduced at any point within there. There's been countless point-based solutions for years, that in theory should meaningfully change the output of these quality processes. But in practice, they really struggle to deal with the breadth and flexibility of the problems that you need to tackle here. So we're going to show you how we've cracked this code, taking these really complex processes and delivering outcomes in a matter of weeks with the quality archetype.
This archetype will set up the necessary data integrations, generate the connections between data sources, and deploy the tooling to run relevant quality analyses. As one example, the archetype will deploy our IoT data connector, which ingests high-scale granular sensor data. This sensor data, whether it's batch data or streaming, can then be used alongside other structured data sources for a full picture of an end-to-end process. I'll start by taking a look at my global view of plant health with any open production-related alerts. I can see that I've got one critical alert open, so I can expect the details related to the alert to start to understand what's going on. To drill deeper, I can investigate my recent batches to understand where my deviations stem from. I'll take a look at sensor data and features of our batches to compare the difference that led to batteries passing quality checks versus those that eventually had to be scrapped. I can generate a predefined view that plots relevant quality features for my failing step to understand where my batches differed early in the process. Once I determine where I'm seeing meaningful differences, I can add my batches from all time to highlight any patterns that could help me replicate more good batches. There are several things that could be driving these deviations. To better understand whether I have a problem with my raw materials or my process equipment, I can drill into one production line in particular and plot my successful batches over time. I can see that I've got periodic degradation, which may indicate an issue with the maintenance for this equipment. The The power of overlaying data from different systems with my quality and sensor data is game-changing in terms of developing a real understanding of my process. I know that my mixer requires regular work, but it appears that I'm suffering from an increase in rejection rates before I perform it. To understand how to improve my model, I can use the sensor readings from the mixer itself. I can quickly pull up all available sensor readings and clean up my noisy sensors to prep my model inputs. I can then select a training interval and my target, my good batches, and quickly create a model that I can tweak in real time to understand how I can better anticipate upcoming failures. What's technically unique here is the ability to incorporate different data sources into my model and configure it in a point-and-click fashion to get visual feedback instantly. My model is only useful if I can incorporate it into my everyday operations. So from here, I can export my model to refine and compare against my existing maintenance schedules and incorporate any of those changes into my plant operations. The quality archetype enables flexibility to tackle many different angles of quality improvement that hasn't previously existed in the space. The seamless integration of maintenance, quality, and sensor data is what allows me to quickly understand the full context of my process and inform my next changes to operations. In this case, I can better estimate when I need to perform maintenance, auto-generate orders for parts, and schedule it during a safe and cost-efficient period. But I can use the same techniques and tooling to also make sure I'm maintaining high levels of quality while tweaking process parameters, changing my raw materials, or increasing my throughput.
I think they've done a very nice job in this presentation specifically with explaining the importance of archetypes and what they mean in real-world applications of Foundry. And now we're going to witness the second archetype, being the supply chain for industrials. But before I get into that, they go on to talk about electric vehicles and lithium-ion batteries as an example. And just to get out in front of any speculation, I do not think this means they're in any sort of partnership with Tesla, nor do I think they will be in the future, just because of how vertically integrated Tesla is, and I might make a separate video on that topic. But I do, nevertheless, as a Tesla investor, find these sorts of discussions about supply chain optimization for electric vehicles and for batteries very interesting, and I hope you do as well. So let's hear about how Palantir attacks the problem with Foundry.
To understand some of the other ways that our customers are using archetypes, let's take a look at another critical industrials function, the supply chain. Supply chains are under constant threat of disruptions, and keeping a supply chain healthy is actually a really complex balancing act. You know, increasing the on-time in full performance in one part of your supply chain might actually cause operating costs to increase in another part. For years, other solutions have claimed that they can solve this complex balancing act. And while this might be the case when all of the data and decisions are in one place, as we know in practice, this is never true, with supply chains run in silos with fragmented data and functions. I mean, just take the past year to know what happens when supply chains are really pushed to the limits, which, to be honest, is why, when it really mattered most, more companies than ever turned to Foundry.
As a supply chain manager, I have to react to everyday disruptions, as well as the bottlenecks and delays due to macro shocks such as COVID and the semiconductor shortage that stress assembly lines and after-sales distribution. On top of responding to these incoming disruptions, I also want to understand how to be better prepared for future disruptions and challenges, rebalancing risk concentrations, preparing for the next product launch, and accelerating sustainability initiatives. Let's take a look at the supply chain archetype. Just like with the quality archetype, this will set up the integrations and connections between data sources and deploy operational applications that will help me run my supply chain decision-making. This time, let's highlight another example of software-defined data integration through Palantir's ERP suite. Gathering data from an ERP system for specific workflows is manually intensive. This process that would take months or even years can now be done in a few hours with Palantir's ERP suite. You can instantly explore the objects, models, and workflows you want to build, and once you've confirmed your selection, the software automatically takes care of the rest, identifying which tables are needed, creating the syncs and required mappings, and building pipelines out of the box. Now that I've deployed the supply chain archetype, let's zoom in on one small piece of the supply chain: managing spare parts for electric vehicle batteries. Let's take this simplified view and show you what's actually happening. Behind the scenes, Foundry has taken that underlying complexity of the supply chain, interactivity between millions of different nodes, and built a digital twin that models these interactions and allows us to see how changes affect the system as a whole. Turning that impossible complexity into a manageable asset is the real differentiated aspect of Foundry, and I can now use it to drive intelligent decisions on an integrated and up-to-date understanding of supply, demand, and logistics across my global network.
So for example, as a logistic manager of spare parts, I'm using this part of the supply chain archetype to forecast network health and respond to unexpected shocks to the system. So our network health is healthy today, but as time goes by, you can see some of these nodes start to turn red, highlighting upcoming issues. So I'm monitoring potential back orders of our spare parts down here, but we can actually easily update the properties I want to monitor in just a few clicks. So tracing costs, quality, on-time performance, and CO2 emissions in one place. Great, so once I've defined my risks in this holistic view, a personalized inbox gives me early warning of potential issues I'll need to resolve. From responding to the everyday disruptions such as low inventory or late deliveries, to actually flagging potential bottlenecks in the system. So I'm selecting the highest priority alerts, and I can see I have 11 days before the Southeast Distribution Center has a back order of high voltage connectors. This is a critical component related to the battery of my electric vehicle line. So if I don't react now, my back order situation could quickly escalate, leaving sales orders unfulfilled and customers without working batteries. So integration with advanced shipping notices show me that the incoming supplier order has been delayed. And I can see there's a few places causing an increase in upcoming demand. So firstly, real-time feedback from vehicle sensors analyzed with recent sales records and historical trends show me that there's an increase in the expected regular customer demand. Plus, there are 2 open technical campaigns for this component raised by the quality department. So actually what's critical here is that it's the combination of these different pieces in the network that's causing this disruption. So whereas previously I would have to manually gather these data from across the business, now Foundry proactively connects the dots for me to help me identify these issues much sooner. Okay, so now I have a holistic understanding of the situation. Let's remediate the problem. So in one place, I have visibility into all the actions I can take to resolve this back order, and at the same time, a clear understanding of the impact this will have on my business. So I can create new orders, modify existing orders, or even scan through potentially hundreds of plants and warehouses to see if I can reallocate my stock from within my network. You can see that with every potential decision, I can instantly compare the estimated shipping costs, time to delivery, and expected quality and CO2 implications. Previously, it would have been impossible to respond with this level of understanding. But what's actually even more exciting here is that instead of manually comparing a few scenarios, I can actually choose the exact set of decisions that will optimize for the factors I care about most, which of course will change depending on the current circumstances. Behind the scenes, Foundry is comparing potentially thousands of possible scenarios to help this logistics manager make a final decision on the best outcome, keeping business running smoothly and customers on the move. Once I'm able to fully understand and react to today's challenges, the chained models underpinning the supply chain critically allows simulation of future events to rebalance trade-offs effectively. So starting to shift from reaction to anticipation in the global supply chain. What happens if certain suppliers go offline? What happens if I double my production of a given vehicle in the next 18 months? Or what happens if I were to change these inventory levels? So let's actually simulate what will happen if suppliers in my network unexpectedly go offline. I can review the potential impact this would have on my supply chain health and also be given suggestions on how to optimize my network to take on future disruptions. So here, for example, I can see I have several critical dependencies that rely on a single supplier, so I should look at broadening my supply base to reduce my exposure. Supply chain and logistic managers were previously forced to make these incredibly complex trade-offs with only a narrow view of the available context. But now with the supply chain archetype, we can not only gain an accurate and granular view of today's risks, but can also simulate future scenarios and make adjustments to make sure our network is ready to take on the challenges of tomorrow. So just to give you an idea of the speed and impact of the archetype, one of our industrials customers had an incredibly complex supply chain landscape with dozens of data sources, including 27 separate ERPs. So with Foundry, in hours, they had their first integrated view of the supply chain. Within 2 days, they were already proactively alerting on potential bottlenecks, and in just 2 weeks, had identified around 50 million in working capital, while simultaneously improving the robustness of the supply chain to react to future shocks. I mean, really put simply, these archetypes can generate enormous business outcomes in just a matter of weeks.
And right there at the end, that's my favorite clip, and one of the most impressive things I've ever witnessed from Foundry. That slider right there, just dragging it across and seeing in real time, visualized on the screen, the effects of the supply chain in a digital twin sense. It's just mind-blowing. The implications for this software are insane. So let's hear some closing thoughts.
Well, these archetypes can be deployed as individual building blocks, Foundry has been designed to be the connective tissue between these pieces, both within and outside of Foundry. Both the inputs and outputs of these different archetypes can seamlessly flow between each other and any current investments outside of Foundry. What we showed you today is just a peek into what we've been building, and we're excited to show more in the future.
We are excited at the hard problems our customers are throwing at Foundry, problems they were unable to solve until Foundry. What you saw today is only a small slice of our archetypes. We are so excited to show you more, a lot more in the near future.
It's not unexpected, but of course great to hear that Palantir has much more to share. Overall, I think the whole event was a great show. It remains to be seen how this will affect the stock in the weeks to come, heading into earnings season. It more or less met my expectations. I was not overly hyped up about the event, because I know it's not a marketing stunt, but I was also expecting great demonstrations from Palantir, and they delivered. Let me know your thoughts on everything Palantir had to say from the Double Click demonstration event in the comments. And what do you want me to cover next? Until next time.